It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Friends, we see a lot of abuse, child abuse in the state of Pennsylvania, for that matter all over the United States. What is being done about it? Well, I'm very happy to have on my show today the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance. Interesting to know that they are on top of this. There are a lot of interesting things that Angela will be talking about today. But first and foremost, we're going to be putting some information on the screens. And I know sometimes you're hesitant as to make a report for fear of something may happen. But it's better to make a report and to do something than, God forbid, something gets really out of control and a child is confused for their life, or there's psychological problems, or even for that, some serious injury. And I'm sure Angela will touch on that. Angela, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
The Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance. Tell me about the organization, first of all.
Well, for the last 38 years, we've been all about the business of preventing child abuse and protecting kids in Pennsylvania. We do that through parent education and support programs statewide. What we're probably best known for is training that's focused on mandated reporters. They're professionals and some volunteers who, by law, must report suspected child abuse. So what we do is we actually teach them what child abuse looks like, what the law says about it, and then the proper way to report it.
Okay, so let's take those steps, okay? What does child abuse look like? So if you're doing a training, take me through those steps of training.
Well, the training...
Well, I mean, without full details, but just bullet points.
Well, I think the point that we want to really get across to folks is sometimes there's not any one particular isolated sign or symptom, but we want people to really look at sometimes the totality of circumstances, and at the end of the day, there's certainly physical and behavioral indicators of abuse, but there's of course several different forms of abuse: sexual abuse, physical abuse, things like that. But what we want people to walk away with is the knowledge that you don't have to be 100% certain, you don't have to do an investigation on your own, but if you have this nagging sense in your gut that something isn't right with a child, then we kind of borrow a little bit that saying from Homeland Security: if you see something, say something. Mm-hmm. So what we really focus a lot on is helping people understand what their role is in terms of recognizing abuse and reporting it, and what the proper steps are. Okay, so in my opening I talked about sometimes we may think that a child is being abused, okay? When it comes to abuse, we had the Sandusky unfortunate thing happen. Let's go back to Sandusky. What happened? What put the spotlight on, abuse from Sandusky, and what do we learn from that, and where are we going from that? We learned a lot from that, Sam. I say that the Sandusky scandal was to child abuse and child welfare what 9/11 was to Homeland Security.
Wow.
It flipped a switch. Wow. And it will never go back to the way it was before that time. The positive thing that came out of that, and I don't mean to ever minimize the pain to victims, their families, or really communities, because let's make no bones about it, communities were really impacted in this too, is that the governor formed a task force on child protection. These were a cross-section.
What governor was that?
Governor Corbett.
Okay.
So there was a cross-section of professionals who came together, attorneys, district attorneys, folks who work in the field of prevention, pediatricians, and they really looked at the Sandusky case, and they looked at our Child Protective Services law and said, where are there weak areas? Where are there loopholes that allowed this to happen? And from that came 24 amendments to our Child Protective Services law, the most sweeping change we'd ever seen since its inception in 1975. So, for example, we broadened the number of folks who are considered mandated reporters, who mean they must report, because that's part of what the breakdown was. People didn't report. We also changed things in our law where now, if you're a mandated reporter, you must make that report to Childline directly yourself. You don't wait and tell a supervisor and hope they make the report. You're legally responsible to make that yourself. We also changed the penalties for failure to report. It can range now from a second-degree misdemeanor to a second-degree felony. We got more serious about protecting kids in this state as a result, and that's a very good thing. Sandusky, truly, you have to say evil exists when you look at the totality of damage done there. But there was also institutional failure. And so what we've tried to do is tighten up the weak spots in the law. And of course, Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance played a key role in that. And the training that we provide is also something in a partnership with the Department of Human Services. So we have a contract to offer, individuals, agencies, free on-site, face-to-face training on this subject matter, because one of the changes to the law is now there are training requirements.
In retrospect, where was the serious problems, or we know the problems with Sandusky? I mean, these were college students, am I correct?
There was a variety of course, victims in this. Some that happened on the campus at Penn State, some with the Second Mile. The breakdown institutionally came from people telling their supervisor and trusting that they would make the reports to Child Protective Services.
So the person who was abused did not go to, they went to authorities and hoping that the authorities would have reported this?
Well, I think it's more that there were some staff members who suspected, and rather than making that report themselves, they went to supervisors. So sometimes you had child victims who said something and sometimes they didn't, which is not unusual for kids. So I think we've come a far way, really, in a short period of time. That doesn't mean it's a perfect system. We have lots more to do, but we've certainly made progress in the year 2015 and moving forward into this year as well.
Are there degrees of certain abuse for children? And when we say child, are we talking about, an age group from 2 to 12, or are we talking 12 to 18, or what ages are we talking?
Well, we're talking about kids under age 18. We know, of course, the younger children are, the more at risk they are for death due to abuse. The most at-risk age group for that is usually under age about 6. We know that parents are the folks that usually perpetrate abuse the most. And we know that on average, somewhere around 30 children are actually killed in this state each year as a result of child abuse. And for those who don't know, I know we only have 2 days left in April, but April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. So timely that we talk about this issue.
Yeah, well, the thing is that I'm because of the importance of this show, I'll be playing it a number of times, okay? And we're going to give you 800 numbers. There's always a fine line sometimes when a parent is reprimanding their children, all right? I grew up in an Italian household. Not that I got beat up, but I mean, the point is when my father just put his hand on the belt, I knew I had to do what I had to do, okay? So, and, if I got a slap in the fanny, et cetera, not to the point where you're beating the crap out of your kids, okay? So there are sometimes people who are aware that there's something not right in a household. Their kids are not, they may see a mark and they may say, well, hey, Nella, what happened to Johnny? He fell or something. Little did they know that the father beat the crap out of him the night before. What does that person do? I mean, because, you don't want to mind people's business. I don't know if you find that a lot, People are always afraid to get involved, Angela.
There are barriers to why people don't report that are very understandable. Some is people are afraid they'll be wrong. They're afraid that they'll make things worse for the child or the children. And what we tell people is the Child Protective Service system cannot activate if they're not contacted. So it's not a responsive, proactive system. It's a responsive one in that they have to know that a child's in danger to really check things out. So we tell folks, if you don't make that phone call or make that report, who will and what if? So while there are groups of folks, professionals, doctors, dentists, teachers, bus drivers, social workers, therapists, who are required by law to report, what we have to remember is that every person in this state, as a citizen, a member of a community, is a permissive reporter, so anyone can make a report. And so if you're uncertain, if you feel uncomfortable and really truly think a child is in danger, we encourage folks to call Childline, and that's 1-800-932-0313.
Give me that number, 800
932
932
0313.
That's the number that is a helpline?
It's Childline. It's Childline. That is.
And what happens when I call this number?
Well, they will go through a series of questions, take information from you. If you are a community member, you do not need to give your name. If you are a mandated reporter under the law because of the position you have.
Who would be a mandated reporter?
Doctors, dentists, therapists, bus drivers, school employees.
So if they suspect something, they are under law, they have to
By law, they must. And now, one of the law changes is that some volunteers. So think about a volunteer role where you assume responsibility for kids and would almost be the equivalent of a staff member, Girl Scout leader, Boy Scout leader, big brother, big sister, a really integral role in a program service where you're assuming responsibility for a child. So we encourage folks. We know this is a topic that comes with it a lot of anxiety for folks. Oh my God,
yes, yeah.
That's the beauty of our agency. We've been training mandated reporters for more than 20 years. So we want folks to visit our website, call our 800 number, access our training that we have online. It's very easy to use. Or if you are the administrator of an agency, you have to provide training for your staff, by all means contact us. We'll come out. There'll be no charge for that. State-of-the-art training. If you're a community member and you're concerned about kids in your neighborhood, we've all had those times where you go to Walmart or the grocery store and you see an interaction between a parent and a child that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
Yes.
We've all had that. And most of us, me included, at some times in life, have kind of ducked down the aisle because we just don't know what to do. We do a wonderful training called the Front Porch Project. There's no charge for that either. We'll come out and we'll train groups of community members how to really be involved in situations like that in a way that's helpful rather than hurtful.
Folks, I'm talking to Angela Liddle, who is the president and CEO of Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance. 800-932-0313, and I'm sure Andy's putting the website up there. We come back. This is interesting, folks. Physical abuse, mental abuse. Sometimes I know we suspect things that are happening. We don't want to become involved. We don't want to mind people's business. But then you find out down the road either that child is in the hospital or dead, or as Angela said, some serious things. 30 kids a year die because of abuse. It's a serious problem. But if we address it, get it early, we could help. The other thing is, what happens after you make that call? Are you afraid of breaking a family up? I'm sure there's a lot of training, a lot of information that goes into that. There's a lot to discuss. We come back from the break. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us, folks. You're watching the Sam Lesante Show. Remember, 24/7, you can watch all of the shows that Samson Productions SSP produces on ssptv.com. My email is sam@ssptv.com. Now remember, folks, for those of you who have friends in the Pottsville area, we're on channel 190 on Comcast. Here in the Service Electric Cable area, which is channel 13, and also high definition 513. In the Mountaintop Wilkes-Barre area on Service Electric channel 92. And now we all are friends on the Lackawanna County, another 72,000 households we added on channel 190, Saturdays and Sunday mornings. My guest today, folks, is Angela Liddle, who is the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance. Very important. Physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse. Here again, sometimes you may suspect either a friend, a neighbor, or whatever, that there's something not right. Okay, for example, if you're with a parent or two parents and the children are there, you find out that they act very strangely when either the dad or mom, it doesn't seem right. But when they're not, when the father or mother sometimes, or both or individually, are not around, these kids are having a great time. Okay, but you're suspecting something. It's that gray area. Okay, what do you do in that case?
Well, what we try to encourage folks to do is to try to look at kind of the totality of the circumstances. So sometimes, unless it's very blatant, a mark on a child that you just know could not possibly have come from an accidental type of injury, a burn mark, a belt mark, things like that. They're very blatant. That's easy to detect. Some of the other things, behavioral indicators, are not as easy. And so what we try to encourage folks to do is to not necessarily jump the gun. It's not all that unusual sometimes for kids to act differently around their parents than when their parents aren't around. Sometimes I think my 25 and 26-year-old daughters, they act differently when I'm around versus when I'm not. So
yeah, that's a different
can't put too much credence to that sometimes, but to really look at kind of the totality. And what we say is if you have a nagging feeling in your gut where it's just telling you this child is not okay, this child is not safe, that's the kind of thing you absolutely act on.
Okay, so all right, so I let's say someone suspects that. And here we are, we're talking about the child line, 800-932-0313. Now, I'm hesitant because, I know Jimmy and Mary and I know Sammy and whatever, and I don't know if I make this phone call, am I going to have a problem? I don't want to cause trouble, but I sense something, it's nagging me. Let me make the phone call. First of all, am I going to be involved? Okay, what happens after I make that phone call?
Here's the deal with that. If you're a concerned citizen, a permissive reporter, you do not need to give your name and contact information. Of course, it's helpful for follow-up if you do that. If you're a mandated reporter and you're legally required to make a report, you must give your identifying information.
Such as I'm Dr. Lesante, or I'm a bus driver or whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
But what you need, what both groups need to know is that your name and your contact information is held in the strictest of confidence.
So what do you do then? What happens with the agency?
What happens then is that Childline will forward the report on if they find that there's enough reason to, in their assessment, forward it on to the county in which the abuse has allegedly occurred. And then the county Children and Youth Office will pick things up from there and do an investigation. What folks need to remember is that even if what's going on in a family with a child does not rise to the level of the definition of child abuse in Pennsylvania, doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't something to be concerned about in that family. And so Children and Youth really can offer parents or whoever's responsible for that child services that might be helpful to them. And that's a good thing because it keeps the situation from escalating till it becomes a situation that would reach the level of the definition of child abuse.
Here's the problem I see. Okay, here's the problem that I see. So we make a report to your agency.
No, you don't report to my agency. You report to Childline.
Childline, I'm sorry. Childline, who is trained. Okay, so now they take this information, all right, and they're trained, they're professional. They're going to handle that call with a lot of professionalism, and the person's nervous on the other line. Now you take that and bring it to the respective county or whatever, okay? Now, that's where we're hoping that the county gets this information. Mm-hmm. Do they go in like gangbusters? Are they trained like Children and Youth? Or, this is, because then it's sort of out of your hands to a degree, I would think, because now they're taking over. Mm-hmm. Are they trained? Do you follow up and say, how did you make out with, Betsy and case?
If you give your name as a mandated reporter, your contact information, if you give your name, you're entitled to know and hear back how the report kind of panned out in terms of what was the finding of that. Was it in fact considered child abuse or not? So you're entitled to that information. It's a tough job. That's the bottom line. I can't imagine, to be honest with you, a more difficult job, save maybe law enforcement, and even then you're better equipped in terms of protecting yourself, going into these homes, never knowing what you're going to find on the other side of the door. But the reality is, there is a training program for county caseworkers. There's ongoing.
Are they required to have those
Yes,
training? Okay.
yes, everybody must have training. And so, you know, what I say to folks is, what's the alternative? So while we can have concern about what if and what might happen, you have to say to yourself, what's the alternative? And that would be not making a report, and that's not okay.
Okay, says Family Support Alliance. How about elderly abuse? Do you handle that?
No, we do not.
Just only that's a whole different ballgame. Folks, I'm talking to Angela Liddle, and the number there, she's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance, well-trained, well-informed. If you suspect something happening, it's 800-932-0313. And I'm sure when you make that phone call, you'll feel comfortable. You don't have to report your name, but you may be saving a kid's life. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Angela Liddle, who is the president and CEO of Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance. So, folks, we have the phone number up, okay? Very serious. When we're talking about abuse, you know, whether it's physical, mental, sexual, okay, for our viewers' sake, the main purpose of Family Support Alliance?
The main purpose is to help folks play a role in protecting Pennsylvania's children. Most folks absolutely want to do the right thing on behalf of kids.
How long have you been around?
Oh, since 1978,
Okay,
so 38 years.
Have you saved many children, you know?
I believe we have. The reality is, if we train folks and help them become more comfortable in what the reporting process is, so that they know that they're able to do that, I think that helps save kids.
The whole thing to me is that if you suspect anything, whether it's in school or whatever, and you make that phone call, the child line is 800-932-0313. As long as I feel that nagging thing, and hopefully that they're going to handle that in the most professional manner without breaking families up, or there could be a problem. There could be an alcoholic father or drug use in the house, that when you go in there, you could address it. So it's depending on the training of the people that you refer these to, and that's so critical, Angela.
It is. The truth is, you know, you think back to the kind of the Maya Angelou quote of, "When I knew better, I did better." And that's what we all have to hope for, that we learn. None of us are born instinctively knowing how to do this stuff. And so PFSA is here to help train mandated reporters, parents, and community members. So we encourage folks, visit our website, call our 800 number, we're happy to help.
Now, I know mandated reporters such as doctors, dentists, or whatever, the bus drivers, or are required to report that, okay? Assuming you are in that position and you sense that, you know, because kids will talk to each other. Kids will say, you know, my daddy beat me, or my whatever, and then maybe someone's hearing this, Jimmy, what'd you say? And, you know, and move into that area. Have you any statistics on how many children you've saved from, you know, after the abuse?
No, we do not. We do not. We are anxiously awaiting the state annual report on child abuse for 2015.
I'm sure there has to be hundreds of students, young people that you had saved because people took the time to report. Just to get that fear out of knowing that you're making the right decision. You know, that when you make that phone call, Angela, you're making the right decision. And so what happens? Maybe they come in and check, and it's really not what you think it is.
And then that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Then that's a good thing.
And we would hope that would be the response in other areas, correct?
Absolutely.
But you're continually training people to become aware of that.
Absolutely. Face-to-face training, web-based training that's both on demand, that you can take any time of the day or night, and then also virtual training, all of which can be accessed through our website.
If I go to our website, will they give me telltale signs?
Yeah, there's all kinds of information
on our
website.
I'm not sure. Let me go and check this website, and say, oh, yeah, I sense this, I sense that. So I have that information.
There's all kinds of information about what our law says, the definition of child abuse. We encourage people to visit it.
Yeah. Well, all I could tell you is that thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
You people do a fabulous job. You really do. And I think it's, you're probably saving a lot of children's lives because of your organization.
We hope so.
And I'd love to have you come back again so we can speak in
Happy
details.
to do that anytime.
Folks, Angela Liddle, President CEO of the Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance. Number is on the screen, 800, that's the child line, 800-932-0313. The website, if you want to go to the website to find out, is it important for me to make the call? I'm sure after you peruse that, you'll know why. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.